And another slow indicator for me is that I see y'all having baby after baby after baby, and y'all are in poverty.
So there's a memory that I have where I was at my grandmother's house on my dad's side. So this is my dad's side of the family at his village. And I could have been maybe around the ages of 11, 12, maybe 13, but I know it was most definitely younger, 11, 12. And at that age, I came to the realization that in some community cultures, girls are primarily indoctrinated. I didn't use that word, but basically what I said was they're just brought up to have kids. That's what they're conditioned to do, right? Is everything that is instilled in that. And I'm talking from a cultural level, right? The women helping out with the domestic house chores. And I get that does instill a sense of responsibility in terms of, cleanliness, in terms of organizing, but also the expectations, right? Like that is your sole purpose, is to take care of the household and to take care of the kids. And not that it's a bad thing, but another thing you realize after you mature, looking back on your own childhood, you can tell what the impacts of poverty are on the lives of children. You can tell what the impacts of young parenthood has the impacts on the lives of children. You don't recognize it in the moment you are a child, obviously, because you're not supposed to be concerned with such things. But after you mature, if you were to reflect back on your own childhood and the friends that you had, the classmates that you had, and if you kind of remember some of the details of what their family life was like, of who their parents were, you could probably get a good idea of what, one, living in poverty meant for that kid, or two, what having a young parent meant for that kid. And one of my only childhood best friend, someone who wasn't my cousin, we were in the same community, in the same village. He passed away when we were around 23, 24 years old. And he had a young mom. Now, I'm not saying that, isn't necessarily her fault, but the environment of him coming to my house versus me going to his house was completely different, right? And as a person who works in education, this is something that you definitely see within certain families, right? The younger parents are more apt to, yes, let their children curse out in public, right? With no repercussions. I'm not saying every young parent does this, but they're more lenient when it comes to language. They might be even more lenient with backtalk, right? It's really just interesting at how, yes, having a child should, be a celebration. And depending on your community culture, which where I am from, it's very much the philosophy of it takes a village to raise a child. But at the same time, if you are a young individual, the odds are more than likely that you are I hate using the word unsuccessful, but you're going to have more difficulties in raising your child if you are a young parent, if you live alone versus if you live with your parents. The grandparents are in the picture. And for a majority of tribal kids, native kids, that is usually the instance. And I'm pretty sure it's like that with a lot of similar other communities too as well. The kids fare better when the grandparents are part of the picture, when they're involved in the upbringing and the raising of the children. Yes, it takes a community to raise a child, but what does that say about the stability of the individual parents themselves? And growing up, we all have siblings, we all have cousins where we know they've lived and grown up in different households with various issues, whether it be substance or substance abuse or domestic abuse, domestic violence, right? Those types of things. And the factors are there in whether or not it was a young parent and whether or not it was a poor parent, so and this is why I think a majority of people within my generation and younger, like the younger millennials, we're opting out of having children. We know it is not financially stable. It is not affordable right now to have any children. And there are, younger individuals right now in tribal nations who are continually having kids, But again, it's due to the factors of, is the family willing to step in and help them out? Yes, which of course they are. It's embedded in our culture. Multi-general home living is embedded within certain cultures. But these kids would not survive had the circumstances been different. If it not for the factors of multi-generational living within the single household, these kids, I think, would be in greater, essentially just in more high risk situations. So I don't know. It's really interesting. And to young Native women, wait to have kids. Wait to have kids. Even though you are taught how to care for a kid, that doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, I'm ready now. When you're 21, 22, you're like, get your experiences first. Because I can definitely say that my past classmates who had younger parents, what they were taught or what was demonstrated to them, what was modeled for them, definitely impacted certain life struggles that they experienced. Again, my childhood best friend is no longer here. He never lived to even see the age of 25, let alone 30. So these thoughts, come to mind, especially when you work with children. I think, like, these things matter. These things have an impact. And honestly, it's sad when there are parents out there who they themselves are still growing up, yet they're responsible for the life of another individual. I don't know. To me, that's an act of selfishness. If you know that you cannot provide the best for your child, and you are just having a kid for the sake of having a kid without considering all these other circumstances, right? I think that is an act of selfishness. So